Welcome back, everybody. Time for another compilation. Thank you so much for watching the last one we put up on this channel. And this time it is the turn of Armor Digimon. Taking a look back through some of my absolute favorite Armor Digivolution custom art videos we've ever done on this channel. All of them cut up to be totally ad-free, so you can just sit back, enjoy, and maybe fall asleep to some custom art Digimon videos. What is up, digital companions? Welcome back to another compilation, and first of all is my video from back when I was blonde, talking about what the armors for the Digimon Adventure cast might look like. And yes, today we're talking the armor evolutions of the original Adventure partners. We know for a fact it's not solely the case that the Digimentals or Armor Digi-Eggs are exactly the same power as the Adventure partners. The Adventure partners are not contained within those Digi-Eggs, because the armors themselves aren't carbon copies of the aesthetics of the Adventure Digimon. Because obviously Digimon like Patron and Gatomon can Armor Digivolve to Pegasusmon and Nefertimon, which gives them a new aesthetic and new armor. And interestingly, we do sort of have a canonical example, dubiously canonical example, of the rest of the Adventure partners Armor Digivolving. Kinda. In the Digimon Adventure 02 audio CD, Armor Evolution to the Unknown, translated by the Digilab link in the description as always, there is a chapter called Armor Evolving in Chaos, which really zeroes in on the silly side of Armor Digivolution, and indeed all the Adventure partners that haven't already Armor Digivolved before get to, possibly. The earlier chapters of this audio drama focus on the 02 kids kind of swapping their Digimental around, and accessing armor evolutions we hadn't seen in the show. But during the 5th chapter, Agumon suggests that the rest of the Adventure partners try Armor Digivolving to fight Boltmon, to which Gomamon responds, well, we technically can't, but right now absolutely nothing is making sense anyway, so maybe something will happen in all the chaos. And then they all Armor Digivolve. As such, Biyomon becomes Kyukanchomon, Tentomon becomes Jikochumon, Palmon becomes Chiagalmon, Gabumon becomes Kita Kitsunemon, Gomamon becomes Urashimamon, and Agumon just kinda goes doolally.
So they started calling me Frankie Donkey Brains. And it was very traumatic.
Agumon for some reason does not Armor Digivolve in this. Maybe they didn't want to commit to what his courage evolution might be, poor lad. It from there deteriorates even further, with even the humans joking about being able to Digivolve and a bunch of other silliness. As I said, this audio drama is kinda crazy and possibly non-canonical, but it is at least an official media exploring the idea of the original Adventure partners Armor Digivolving. Besides, of course, Gatomon and Patamon, as I said earlier. I definitely would like to see a less obviously canon take on this, or at least a more serious look, you know, maybe in something in the future, just because I absolutely adore Armor Digivolution and I'm always looking for excuses for it to be explored further. I now want to thank the incredibly talented HLR Art, who has drawn depictions of every single one of the audio drama Adventure Armor Evolutions. He said he wanted to achieve a look for each of them which matched the style of Nefertimon and Pegasusmon, not visually but in as much that the Armor Digivolutions use the body of the rookie but either elongate or stretch it out to fit the form and then armor them rather than feeling like a full stage step up like to champion level, as well as trying to keep the consistent theming of the Armor Digi-Egg. First is Biyomon's Love Armor Digivolution Kyukanchomon. HLR based this design on its name origin, the Common Hill Miner, whose scientific name is Gracula religiosa. HLR took the religiosa part of this name to inspire the design, especially as the Digi-Egg of Love reminds him of a Popat. As such, HLR saw Kyukanchomon as a kind of priest in a religion around Valdemon. This holy bird design would also link the ring or cuff Biyomon wears evolving into a holy ring. I absolutely love this interpretation. I think it all comes together so beautifully by including Biyomon's body and the Digi-Egg, as well as a new direction we haven't seen with the Digi-Egg of Love before. Next is one of my favorites of this bunch, Jikochumon, who is Tentomon with the Digi-Egg of Knowledge. HLR wanted to use an insect to tie into Tentomon and Knowledge that hadn't been used before, so settled on an earwig. Jikochumon's name contains trouble and order in Japanese, and so HLR settled on a kind of schoolroom criminal, making Jikochumon a Bancho or Bancho adjacent Digimon. He is trouble but is part of a gang which has order or a hierarchy. I really like this depiction as it both fits to the name and design conventions, but also really ties together that Japanese classroom troublemaker aesthetic with something annoying like an earwig to make for something I think especially fits into that audio drama's kind of zany mood. Then is Gabumon's friendship armor Kita Kitsunemon. HLR was inspired by Cubimon for this Northern Fox design and folded in the lightning elements from Ragermon. He also says because he is a fan of The Flash, he thinks Kita Kitsunemon would be a speedster master, acting as a messenger to different Digimon groups around the digital world when there is urgency. This design I think feels the most likely of the group, one I can see really happening, and I think feels like a good origin point which could lead into Ragermon via the Digi-Egg of Friendship. It also just feels like a really fun take on kind of an alternate champion form for Gabumon if nothing else. Next is Galmon, Palmon with the Digi-Egg of Sincerity, and HLR says this was the easiest to make. If you consider Palmon a child and Lilymon an adult, Galmon slots into the middle as a teenager, specifically an American cheerleader teenager, as Mimi's character is very connected to American fashion culture. When I first read about the audio drama, Galmon was the one that I could see most clearly in my head, and HLR's art is almost exactly what came to me. It folds in the elements I expect from the Sincerity Digi-Egg easily because, well, sincerity mostly just means grass. I could easily have seen this in something like the Ponchomon episode of Digimon Adventure 2020 in place of Ponchomon. And finally we have Urashimamon, Gomamon's reliability armor. HLR said this was the hardest to come up with. He only had the legend of Urashima Taro to go by from Wikipedia, and that's what informed the net and turtle shell design. He also wanted it to feel somewhat like a very futuristic android, like Astro Boy, but during the design a scar across the eye felt appropriate, making him a sort of pirate android, which HLR says fits Vikemon. I actually really like this idea because at first a kind of futuristic android might seem really out of left field, but I think it works well when you compare it to the vehicle-based Submarimon. The metallic vehicular armor and cockpit etc. would make a lot of sense if the original Digimon that inspired it was this kind of futuristic android pirate. I will say of all of these designs, I was least initially sold on this interpretation, but HLR's explanation that he gave me now contextualizes it so much more, and I actually kind of like it. Kind of like Shakuamon, I guess. So that's a look at what potentially armor evolutions for the adventure partner Digimon might look like, based on our one canon example of it kind of happening. I do feel a little bit bad for Agumon, who kind of gets the short end of the stick in the audio drama, so I wanted to give a quick shout out to @ElPoyomon, who many months ago now, video production schedules are crazy, worked together with me to design a Agumon Armor Digivolution, Razormon. The idea here was to do something similar to Flamedramon, but with a full dinosaur leaning as opposed to a draconic leaning, inspired by Agumon's dinosaur aesthetic. I wanted it to feel different to Flamedramon, but also familiar, a kind of echo, and we settled on something inspired by raptors. I adore this design, and ElPoyomon did so much good work bringing it to life. We settled together on the name Razormon due to his incredibly sharp claws, talons, armor pieces, and others. I think it's a striking design which really feels like a progenitor to Flamedramon. Oops, almost forgot this one in the record. Look at that hair once again. This is Dark Armor Digivolutions for the 02 cast. We are going to be looking at what Dark Armor Digivolutions might look for the Digimon Adventure 02 partners. We already know the Digimental of Darkness does exist in the old card game and Wonderswan games, though it was only ever used to give rookie Digimon armor or champion evolutions, rather than giving unique darkness armors in the card game, and in the Tag Tamers video game it only protected against holy damage. But we can fix that. Tag Tamers does also feature Digimental of Desire, Guts, and Vanity, but we never saw so much as images for these, so it's really hard to fabricate armors based on them as we have no reference point at all. But if enough of you want to see it, I could try and explore Armor Digivolution for the other Digimentals in a future video. In my head, the scenario for this would come about from the Digimon Emperor finding or being given his own Digimental of Darkness by a dark force like a possessed Oikawa, and would each week transform the 5 main 02 Digimon into their dark armor forms, perhaps requiring either a team up with a past Digidestined or one of the 02 kids to find their second Armor Digimental to defeat him. And yes, even Wormmon is not going to be left out of these proceedings because, let's say the Digimon Emperor, in desperation after having used the Digimental of Darkness on all the other partners, decides to use Wormmon for an evil Digivolution. He's just sat around anyway, and it would lead beautifully into the Digi-Egg of Kindness later on. But Karn, you might be thinking, in a lot of these possible evolution videos you tend to rely on Digimon that already exist, but there's barely any Armor Digimon that look dark or evil, and certainly none of them that resemble the Digimental of Darkness, enough to fit your exacting standards for Dark Digivolution. That, if you're not familiar, being that I want to see the Digimental in the design and that I want to see the original rookie Digimon underneath it. They can be elongated, twisted, warped, but they have to be there. That is true, and that is why I paid artists to design all 6 of the Dark Armor forms you're going to be seeing in this video. For Veemon's armor, I called upon the talents of HLR Art, who I featured in my Digimon Adventure Armors video, and they pulled it off with aplomb. This Veemon Dark Armor Digivolution I have christened Venomdramon. Its body elongated and warped to have a pose halfway between Flamedramon and Raydramon, but encased in the Digimental of Darkness, it forming a gooey hide around Veemon with the globe of the Digimental of Darkness forming pustules all over its body. I can imagine these emitting dark energy as he attacks and while he spits poison. I love how much of the Veemon body you can see here. It almost feels wrong to see an Armor Digivolution with this much flesh exposed, which I think adds to how horrifying it is. And continuing that theme, also designed by HLR Art, is Hawkmon's Dark Armor Digivolution Strixmon. This has similarities to Venomdramon, with the Digimental forming like the Venom symbiote on its body with some exposed bone. But for this design we also took inspiration from the Native American creature the Wendigo to match Hawkmon's Native American inspiration, as well as various evil and ghostly birds across different mythologies, including its namesake, the Strix or Striges, who in Greek folklore are vampire women who transform themselves into birds of prey to attack people. And in Roman mythology, the Strix is a demon named for the screech owl that would drain children's blood. A suitably grisly bird-based inspiration, I think. I also particularly like how it carries the Darkness Digimental Orb in its talons. Then, for Armadillamon, I commissioned Alltrade, who designed our Taumon Dark Digivolution for the TAMERS Dark Digimon video, and also designed some really awesome pieces you can check out on their Twitter. This Digimon they've christened Metal Theriamon draws inspiration from Skull Greymon, and the name comes from the extinct giant sloth. Alltrade envisioned this as the armor bursting out from within Armadillamon, with muscle-like tendrils piloting the body and ruining Armadillamon's shell. I think this is an incredibly striking design that wonderfully combines the Dark Digivolution of Skull Greymon with a really fresh take on the Digimental of Darkness, and I'm sure Alltrade will be able to fill in more details in the comments below or on their Twitter as to their design inspiration for this. Next, for Patamon's Dark Evolution, I asked Soru for help. Soru designed Hiraethmon, one of our channel mascots, and Soru is also a channel member. For Patamon's Dark Armor, I wanted to see somewhat elements of both its Pegasusmon/Godramon side and its Angemon line side, but of course with darkness infused. As such, I gave Soru the jumping off point of the Nukkalavi, a horse-like demon of Orcadian mythology, which takes a form similar to a centaur but with a full horse head too. As such, Soru ended up with this, a Nukkalavi and centaur-inspired Patamon armor with the Digimental of Darkness forming armor and blades, as well as the globe forming pustules, a headpiece, teeth, and spider eyes among other things that I have christened Keshimon, after Keshi, the horse demon of Indian mythology. I did consider Nukkalavimon or Nukkemon, but it just sounded kinda off and didn't quite hit the ear right, so while Keshi wasn't necessarily the main inspiration for the name, I think it works better, and often Digimon's names, etymologies, and designs come from multiple sources anyway. Some other details I adore here are Soru inverting the Digimental of Hope, much like how satanic imagery inverts the crucifix, and also the inclusion of the bat symbols you see in the Devimon line on the feet. This showing that connection and potential fine line between Angemon and Devimon. I love this design because it feels so familiar to Patamon, Pegasusmon, and Angemon, and yet is also super original and scary. For Gatomon, I commissioned Capney, who was one of the artists who drew Wormmon, the other mascot for this channel. We wanted to keep the Egyptian focus to this corrupted armor form similar to Nefertimon, but I also thought it would be interesting to tie into Dagomon, as Dagomon does somewhat resemble the Digimental of Darkness, and of course, Kari has a lot of plot, some of it abandoned, with the Dark Ocean, which would feel like a natural tie-in to her partner Dark Digivolving in any way. Capney took inspiration from the Egyptian goddess Bast and turned Gatomon's body into something more resembling Black Gatomon to reflect Bast's coloration. You can see the elements of Dagomon in here alongside that Bast imagery, and I love how the Digimental forms both armor and these things which almost feel like veins, like they're pumping poison into this dark cat. And I really do like that it feels like it goes alongside Keshimon, much like Nefertimon looks like a pair with Pegasusmon. I didn't ask Soru or Capney to make them a matching pair, but I think they still look good side by side. And finally, our Wormmon Dark Armor was drawn by Dry, who also did our amazing new channel banner, which I don't think I've actually shown off in a video before, only in community posts, but look at this. This banner is incredible and there are so many details you can see in there. For this, we wanted to lean heavily into the bug elements of Wormmon, but also both both agreed a great way to utilize the Digimental of Darkness would be if it took over Wormon's body like the Ophiocordyceps unilateralis fungus that infects ants and slowly infests their entire body, taking it over and turning it into essentially a zombie, which then assists in the transmission of the parasitic fungus to more ants and other creatures. As such, we have called this horrific creature Ophiomon, coming from that parasite, but also the Ophion wasp and Orpheus, who attempted to rescue Eurydice from Hades. I adore how Dry incorporated the Digimental as these visor-like goggles, in addition to the armor and gems on the hands, but also with this spider-like web thread spilling out from the hands and pinning it to the floor, but also giving it the ability to ensnare its enemies. Another funny coincidence is that this dark armor form being called Ophiomon ties into the fact that in Dry's native Portuguese, Ophio means the string or the wire. We didn't even intend that. That was two separate ideas that accidentally came together really well, with that whole web/string idea to this parasitic dark armor. I really enjoyed that one. What a fun throwback. But now it is time for Digimon Survive, which in some ways is kind of a reboot or reimagining of Digimon Adventure 2. So join past Karn and a bunch of artists as we gave those Digimon Survive partners custom art Armor Evolutions. This video contains no spoilers past or including Chapter 5 of Digimon Survive, and features no plot critical spoilers or deaths from the entire game. So yes, giving Armor Digivolutions to the Digimon Survive Digimon. Now part of this video does kind of involve assigning crests to the Digimon Survive humans, but I do want to make it clear here that these might not be my final crest picks for all the kids. I nominally agree with most of them, but there are a few moments in different endings that to me might indicate that some kids might shift between two. But for the purposes of this video, I think the ones that I have picked fit quite well. For this video, we're also omitting the Digi-Eggs of Kindness, Miracles, and Destiny, mainly for some spoiler reasons that if you played the game once, you probably understand. Not related to Armor Digi-Eggs, you know what I mean, but also because maybe we'll save them for a future video. So let's begin with Ryo and Kunemon. I gave Ryo Sincerity, and again, I'd like to dance around spoilers, but I think being sincere, being open is a key trait to Ryo. And if we go on the Japanese version of that crest, I think Ryo does also embody purity to a degree. Again, I'm being very careful here, but past a certain point, I do think that Ryo does embody this crest quite well. And I think if you've played Survive a couple of times, you can probably see what I mean. So, taking the Digi-Egg of Sincerity, Kunemon Armor Digivolves to become Danamon, designed by All Trade. Danamon gets its name from the Dana, a family of dragonflies. But according to All Trade, despite the harmless nature of its namesake, this bug will break you. It can throw its claws like boomerangs to tear its prey to shreds with shocking precision. Even with its seeming lack of eyes, it's capable of seeing the bioelectric aura of any potential enemies within a certain range around itself. But despite its dangerous appearance, Danamon is actually rather skittish, cowardly almost, and prefers to attack from a distance when the opponent least suspects it. I think the challenge of combining the Digi-Egg of Sincerity with Kunemon and producing something that feels unique from both Flymon and Kuwagamon, some very common Kunemon evolutions across all of Digimon media, was a real challenge that All Trade nailed. Plus, using the Digi-Egg shurikens as big claws, inspired. Then, moving over to Shuji, I have given him Knowledge. There was a great temptation to give Shuji reliability just like Joe, but I ultimately felt someone else embodied reliability a bit more. As such, Knowledge fills the gap there. Shuji supposedly knowing more than the others, being older and wiser, and expected to be more smart and knowledgeable by his family. And so his Lopmon will Armor Digivolve with the Digi-Egg of Knowledge. According to Digmon's reference book listing, the Digimental of Knowledge has the attributes of Earth, and those that don this Digimental would wield the power to manipulate the Earth. So I wanted to preserve that feel with this. Lopmon becoming a powerful digging machine bunny I have dubbed Excamon, drawn by some guy 944. The name Excamon coming from both excavation but also excelling in a subject or field. As most rabbit species in the wild live in underground burrows that they dig, this just felt like a really perfect pairing. This Digimon would have an arsenal of attacks similar to Digmon, but also would make huge advantage of its digging ability to burrow under the ground and surprise opponents by popping up where they least expect it to. Saki then, to me, felt natural to get Hope. She is a reasonably hopeful person, and I think the kid who probably sees the most hope in the world of the Kemonogami. She also, to me, felt like one of the first to put a positive or hopeful spin on each scenario too, due to her own personal reasons. As such, Saki's Floramon Hope armor form is this, Chlorismon, designed by HLR, and named after the Greek god goddess or nymph of spring, flower, and new growth, Chloris. After all, hope does spring a turtle.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyway, Chlorismon is, in my opinion, a truly beautiful Digimon, taking those elements familiar from Pegasusmon, including her name being Greek, but doing something very new with it. Its stamen now a full-on whip of hope it uses to corral its opponents. Then the counterpart to hope in Adventure and 02 is Light, and given that Saki is only 1 year older than her, I have given the Digi-Egg of Light to Miu. As the youngest of the group, she is probably the most pure, and also I think represents light and the future of this group of Kemono-destined. She also has a fascination with the dark and spooky, with yokai and spirituality, which I think a Heart of Light would help her traverse. But I will also say sincerity would have been fun for her, as her early personality probably does tie into Mimi a lot. Again, if you know, you know. But let's stick to our guns and have me use Shakomon Armor Digivolve with the Digi-Egg of Light to become Mirage Dramon, designed by Dry. According to Dry, both the Chinese and Japanese mythologies share the story of giant clams that create mirages, and are either sea monsters or shape-shifting dragons. These are called Shen or Shinkiro, respectively, which would likely mean Mirage Dramon's Japanese name would be Shinkiromon. Dry said, and I agreed, that Miu and Shakomon have eccentric personalities and both hide their true selves in some way. Miu hides her true feelings with the way she acts and speaks, and Shakomon hides its physical body inside the clamshell. Furthermore, it was Miu who initially guided the group into the temple, igniting the events of the game. As such, Dry designed its armor evolution using the Digimental of Light based on the giant clam myth, the result being a cloudy figure inspired by Chinese dragons and consequently Holy Dramon as well, that guides others to safety or to their doom depending on its mood. Its true form is unknown, as even its armor is a mirage cast by the clam shell. This myth also adds yet another layer of symbolism and connection to the crest, because what is a mirage if not a trick of the light? I absolutely love this take on an armor for Shakomon, because it really feels very different to what we know, but actually ticks most of the armor requirements we're looking for while still doing something fresh. But what about Miu's brother Kaito? Well, I assigned him the Digi-Egg of Love. I think particularly familial love, his love for his sister, is a hugely important part of his character, no matter how much he may struggle to not be selfish with that love. This familial love, I think, is a much more interesting and fun interpretation of love than just, you know, uwu romance love. Been there, done that in Digimon. So the love between siblings of Kaito and Miu, who are our Mat and TK of Survive, feels pretty great. So Dracmon with the Digi-Egg of Love becomes Storgemon, once again designed by Alltrade. This is following the idea of Armor Evos taking traits from and resembling the champion forms of a Digimon, hence the resemblance to Sanglutmon. But also takes more influence from Kaito than Dracmon. Kaito is a guard dog for Miu. He doesn't really distinguish between genuine threats to her or perceived threats in strangers, so a blind German Shepherd style design seemed fitting. Storgemon is also given a collar with blood written on it in Digicode, both referencing Dracmon's, well, Dracularing, and the blood ties between its partner and his family. And the name Storge comes specifically from the Greek word for that, Storge, familial love. Love that is not romantic, love that is between family and friends. But Alltrade actually designated this as Storgemon Fight Mode, as he also designed Storgemon Flight Mode, and said, Flight Mode was meant to feel more like a classic armor. Take Dracmon, stick metal to him, stretch the boy out, and boom. This design was meant to more invoke Dracmon's trickster tendencies and to feel like a guardian, a very gargoyle kind of vibe. Once again, some truly wonderful choices in design here from Alltrade, and I think forms that feel very familiar to Dracmon and its evolutions, but also fresh and reimagined. And Alltrade did add that he doesn't actually consider these mode changes per se, but more two possible forms that this Armor Digivolution could take. Moving over to Aoi, I have given her Friendship. Again, like reliability and maybe even love might work for her, but I think Friendship sums her up well. She's described as the mom of the group sometimes, but definitely is the kind of second in command quite often who keeps the peace with everybody. She also has the Beast Digimon of the group of 8, and so some Mat allegories I think are welcome here as an element of subversion, despite how much Kaito is very Mat-like too. So Labramon Friendship Armor Digivolves to become Barguestmon, designed by some guy 944. For me, I think we're weirdly lacking in in dog friendship armor Digimon, given that Garurumon the wolf is the inspiration for it. So this makes a lot of sense to me, with the Digi-Egg armor forming in familiar ways to Raidramon, but also more suited to a dog, with even the teeth of the Digi-Egg made into a dog muzzle with teeth. It gets its name from the Barghest, a North English mythological monstrous black dog with large teeth and claws, and I specifically decided to tie it into the common black dog mythological creatures because obviously it is a black-clad dog Digimon, but also because one of Labramon's very notable common evolutions across all Digimon media is Cerberusmon, which makes for a very fun connection, as according to Wikipedia, the origins of the black dog are difficult to discern. It is uncertain whether the creature originated in the Celtic or Germanic elements of British culture. Throughout European mythology, dogs have been associated with death. Examples of this are the Cwn Annwn from Welsh, Gum from Norse, and Cerberus of Greek, all of whom were in some way guardians of the underworld. So this design is just nice to see Labramon have an evolution that retains Labramon's body and form while doing something new and while tying into the recurrent black dog myths of European culture. Plus that cap is just adorable. Penultimately is Minoru, who I have given courage. A lot of Minoru's chapter 1 and 2 story, and even later into the game, is about overcoming his worries, concerns and fears, and being courageous. Striking out into the world, trying food he doesn't know is safe, joining fights and making alliances despite his fear. A truly courageous lad, and so his partner Falcomon will courage Armor Digivolve to become Kaibunmon, designed by Capney. Getting its name from Kaibun, the Japanese word for ash, this autumnal feeling firebird is so much fun. Evocative of many firebirds before it, but also of course Flamedramon, especially in its bipedal nature. Kaibunmon would keep up Minoru's passion and fire of courage in battle to deliver devastating attacks to the enemy. I think Capney really excelled here at bringing forward a familiar silhouette and design from Flamedramon, but giving a much more avian feel that we really have never seen from the egg and yet feels so fitting. And finally is Takuma, who I had to give reliability. The entire group of humans and Digimon rely on Takuma. They rely on him as the leader, they rely on him for battle, and of course they rely on him making decisions. Both in story and on a gameplay level, Takuma is the one peacekeeping, making decisions, and is looked to constantly for leadership, resourcefulness, and decision making. And as there's no crest of leadership, I think reliability to be relied upon makes perfect sense. Again, the JP version of reliability is funnily enough sincerity, but I think that is also applicable to Takuma. Regardless of whether we make moral, harmonious, or wrathful decisions as Takuma, the hope, the assumption is that those choices will be sincere. A lot of interactions with others get positive affinity when Takuma is sincere, and it's Takuma's sincerity that also ties into some decisions I can't talk about. So we're sticking with reliability for Takuma, and as such, Capney brought us home by giving Agumon an aquatic Armor Digivolution in Scubadramon. I'm always most fond of Armor Digimon that do something unique with the base rookie, and Scubadramon is so unique. It also gives Agumon something he basically never gets, and that is an affinity and powers of the water and the ocean. Especially given the geography of the Digimon Survive world, you can 100% see how Scubadramon would have been incredibly handy in battle and in traversing distances. Just a really great interpretation of the Digi-Egg of reliability here, and giving Agumon a whole new set of attributes. I love it. Hopping on from Digimon Survive, it's time for Digimon Tamers. Hit it, Pascan! But yes, today we are giving the Digimon Tamers partners Armor Digivolutions, with that conceit of them having Armor Digimodify cards. I teamed up with Weirdomon once again, who you should definitely check out in the description down below, especially his Instagram where he's turning all the Kanto Pokemon into Digimon-style Kenji Watanabe-esque art. So without further ado, let's begin with Leomon and Jerry. I decided it made sense to give Jerry the Digimodify card of kindness. It's a trait I think she tries to show above all others, and works as a suitable inverse to the D-Reaper's cruelty. I really wasn't sure what direction to go with a Leomon kindness armor, but then Weirdomon delivered by Armor Digivolving Leomon into Stuff Leomon. I absolutely love the idea of Jerry, who's so fond of puppets, having her champion level Digimon Armor Digivolve to a stuffed plush version of Saber Leomon, its intended mega. Now I know out of the gate you're going to be thinking, well, where's the armor on this one? And we were trying to go for a more realistic take, what we think Digimon specifically would do, and also folding in some ideas we like. And if we look at the Digi-Egg of Kindness armors, basically none of them are actually armored, and instead the armor often manifests as red or pinkish glow, gloves for the Digimon. So we continued that odd tradition with this cute but powerful kindness armor. It is just so adorable and would fit in just great alongside Toyagumon and X-Tyrannomon. Then moving over to Marine Angemon and Kenta, we have a bit of a unique situation. Marine Angemon is of course a mega level Digimon, but our framing for this video actually means we kind of get to skip some of the more awkward lore implications of 0-2, because this is a Digimodify armor and not a standard Digimental armor. We also thought it made a lot of sense to pair the bespectacled Kenta with the Digi-Egg of Knowledge, and so Marine Angemon will armor Digimodify into Water Bearmon. This Marine Digimon would have power surprisingly above Mega and possibly even close to an Ultra Digimon like Omnimon. Weirdomon based the design on a Water Bear or Tardigrade, which is a type of bug that needs to be surrounded by water to survive, though are usually found on lichens, mosses, and even sand and soil. This is such a genius combination of the water of Marine Angemon and the overall themes of Digmon and the Digi-Egg of Knowledge, bugs combined with the earth, soil, etc. that Tardigrades might be found in. And then is Kenta's best mate, Kazu, who is of course partnered with Gardramon. I felt it made complete sense to give Kazu the Digimodify card of reliability, as it would mean Kazu and Kenta get the 2 Digi-Eggs of Cody, those 2 best mates having the 2 Digi-Eggs of one character, but also because Kazu straight up has the crest of reliability on his t-shirt. As such, we're going to be giving his Gardramon the armor form Cruisermon. Weirdomon and I both agreed it felt super important for reliability armors to continue the tradition of Submarimon in being aquatic or oceanic vehicles, and so Cruisermon carries that torch in being a large boat, somewhere between a naval cruiser, hence its name, and a tugboat or steamboat. I fell in love with this design the second I saw it and could just see it trawling around the net ocean, firing off and attacking enemy Digimon side by side with Water Bearmon. I like through the Digi-Eggs that I assigned and that Weirdomon worked with, we get to have both of them kind of be like Marine Digimon, which is very cool. And I absolutely adore Cruisermon. It's another Gardramon evolution, go figure, I love it. And then it's time for Impmon. I thought it'd be really fun to give Impmon, or more specifically Iron Marco, the Digimodify card of love. This is to represent that sibling bond, but also the love that they and Impmon had to learn to have and express for each other. As such, Impmon's love armor evolution will be Erosmon, and I think this silly little guy is so fun to explore in the armor context. I think a lot of focus is put on Digimon being like super cool, super badass, or super sexy, especially when it comes to like fan art Digimon, but I don't think that's fully reflective of Digimon as a whole, and some Digimon are just silly, goofy, odd, and sometimes those are the best ones. And that's why I just adore Impmon becoming this little mischievous Cupid. Still completely on brand for the troublemaker Impmon, but now getting to fly around shooting people with his crest of love arrows and making them fall in love and possibly getting in trouble. I chose the name Erosmon because there's already a Digimon called Cupimon, so settled on using the name of the Greek equivalent of Cupid, Eros. And then we slide over to Monodramon. We gave Rio the Armor Digimodify card of Sincerity, and to be frank, that is largely because I think that the other crest or other Digi-Eggs matched up so well with other kids that Rio's was just kinda left over, but I do still think it's a really cool theme for Rio. Sincerity in the dub, Purity in the sub, I think do match quite well with Rio. You know, he is kind of like the side game protagonist, and his sincerity, his purity, ties in quite nicely to his relationship with Monodramon, Cyberdramon, etc. And so that means we get to do some really fun stuff by exploring this with Monodramon, who with the Digimodify card of Sincerity will become Dilomon, the grass and Japanese weaponry of the Digi-Egg being combined with some dinosaur aspects from a dinosaur called Dilophosaurus. I'm absolutely in love with the idea of a little dragon dinosaur ninja, and Weirdomon was absolutely inspired to use the shurikens from the Digimental to make the horns and tail spike, as well as using the leaf to make up the frills that the Dilophosaurus has. This is just such a fun take that we don't see in the other Digimon from the main line for Monodramon in Tamers, and just really adds to all that fun and interesting exploration we can do with armors, because they are not kind of the main Digivolution, there's something side, there's something different. And then is Susie and Henry, who I've elected to give Light and Hope Digimodify cards respectively. Susie getting Light feels on brand, I think, her being the younger sister to a main cast member meant to me the callback to Adventure was either going to be Kari or TK, and ultimately I decided she'd reference Kari. As such, her Lopmon will Light Armor Digimodify to become Moon Rabbitmon. This Armor Digimon draws heavily from the East Asian and specifically Chinese mythology surrounding the Moon Rabbit. Similar to 30mon, this large light armor rabbit can be used as a mount to transport the small Susie around. It's even saddled up on its back. I chose the name Moon Rabbitmon because of course it is inspired by the moon rabbit of that mythology, but also because frankly a ton of moon names like Lunamon, Moonmon, Cressamon, etc. were already taken. But actually I do think this slightly longer Moon Rabbitmon name does feel very appropriate for this Digimon, and the Digimon franchise's naming conventions in general. And then her brother Henry of course uses the Hope Digimodify cards to turn Terriermon into Tianmamon. Similar to Susie, I asked Weirdomon to base Terriermon's Hope armor on Chinese folklore, to reference the Wong family's Chinese background. But also I thought in particular it was important to reference a seeming recurring theme of the Digi-Egg of Hope, and that is creatures, perhaps even specifically horse creatures, of mythology. This can be seen best in Pegasusmon and Sagittariumon, both being based on mythical horses. So I asked Weirdomon to base this design on the Tianma, which literally means heavenly horse in Chinese and is a winged flying horse in their folklore. Like Moon Rabbitmon, Tianmamon can also be used as a mount by Henry to traverse the digital or real world. So then Rika gets the Armor Digimodify card of Friendship. I think Rika does actually match up quite well with the kind of Blue Ranger archetype that was Matt in Adventure, and I think the thing she had to learn throughout Tamers really was friendship, being friends and partners with her Digimon and the other kids. So Rika's Renamon will Armor Digimodify to Raijumon. Its name comes from Raiju, one of very few thunder creatures in Japanese mythology to technically not be used as the names for other Digimon like Raidramon, Raijinmon, and Raijiludomon. This Thunder Armor Digimon would be incredibly fast and attack like a lightning strike, leaving just its downed enemy and the sound of a thunderclap. I think this is such a cool take on a Renamon friendship armor that feels similar to Raidramon, but also wholly unique and in line with Renamon itself. And our last kid of this video is going to be Takato. Unfortunately, there are not enough Digi-Eggs to assign to Alice and Minami without it feeling kind of a little bit weird or missing another kid out, but Takato of course had to have the Armor Digimodify card of Courage, which he uses to Armor Digimodify Guilmon to Scorchdramon. Scorchdramon is reminiscent of classic European dragons, which makes a ton of sense, as Guilmon's Mega Gallantmon would spend time in the type of castles a dragon might attack and scorch, or maybe even protect. As Guilmon's body is red, Weirdomon manifested the Digi-Egg of Courage in black with flames, rather than red to provide a more pleasing colour palette without changing Guilmon's body colour, which I think works incredibly well while still evoking that feel of Flamedramon and the Digi-Egg. But there is probably something you've been thinking of this entire video, and that is of course Golden Armor Digivolution. In Hurricane Touchdown, Willis's Terriermon Golden Armor Digivolved to Rapidmon with the Digi-Egg of Destiny, so I think it would be a wonderful little nod of the hat to Henry's preceding Terriermon tamer if Henry also got the Digi-Egg of Destiny Digimodify card, allowing Terriermon to become Rapidmon Gold in the Digimon Tamers continuity. But that does leave the Digimodify card of Miracles, and of course one last piece of custom art, which would go to Takato and Guilmon, transforming Guilmon into the Golden Armor form Paladinmon. A Knight of the Realm clad in golden armor I could 100% see working side by side with Magnamon in the Royal Knights, and is overall just a wonderful take on the Golden Knight concept, which feels so close to Magnamon, but also very much its own Digimon. Next is one that really didn't do super well. I don't know whether it was the subject matter, the title, the thumbnail, something didn't quite go right with this one, but I still think the art in it is absolutely phenomenal, and that's because we gave in this video custom art Armor Evolutions to Digimon partners from the Adventure movie continuities, new Digidestined in the Adventure movies, Terriermon and Lopmon and Willis, Morphomon and Menoa, etc. There are other Digimon that are kind of exclusive or primarily appearing in those movies, like Caramon's line, but I'm thinking more specifically if those new Digidestined got to Armor Digivolve like in 02, and indeed Hurricane Touchdown with Willis, and indeed even how we've explored for the Adventure cast before. But in order for us to go back to the beginning, we're going to start with the most recent movie, Digimon Adventure 02 The Beginning, and Ukomon, the partner of Louis, both of which, wow, have just become so useful in the card game, huh? So that's given them some legitimacy, I guess. I'm going to avoid spoilers on 02 The Beginning itself. The only things you're going to see discussed here are things you saw already in the posters and trailers, so I'm not going to like spoil anything that happened because I still haven't watched it. But it's clear that Louis and Ukomon from the trailers, from the posters, have a dark, tragic past of some kind. And given I've used the Digi-Egg of Darkness to Armor Digivolve the 02 cast before, I figured it was appropriate their newest member, I guess, would also be able to access that dark Digi-Egg in the Karn EX EX canon. While the Digi-Egg of Darkness in the WonderSwan games was not used to Armor Digivolve, I think it really should have been. And so, Ukomon Dark Armor Digivolves to Lofumon, drawn by Rubix. I thought the aquatic theme of Ukomon was well set up to connect to the Digi-Egg of Darkness, and indeed I even suspected Ukomon might relate to the Dark Ocean in Dagomon in my theories before 02 The Beginning came out. Merging the egg and the Digimon though was a pretty tough ask, and I think Rubix did fantastically. The sort of globe of the Digi-Egg forming the light of the anglerfish style design, and indeed Lofumon's name comes from Lofiforms, the order anglerfish belong to. One of my core requests for Armor Digimon is that somehow, even if stretched and elongated, you can see the original Digimon underneath, and Ukomon is certainly still in there, just now turned into a destructive, slashing and biting beast from the deep. And this connection to the ocean is of course informed by the fact that Ukomon itself is likely based on sea angels. Lofumon has been consumed by darkness, turning that power into a razor-sharp armor that helps it sail through the digital world oceans, where it indiscriminately lures in prey to consume them with its freakish maw. Beware, this siren is a portend of evil, and it can hypnotize you with its light of the end before ripping you to shreds. Moving backwards, Digimon Adventure Last Evolution Kizuna featured Morphomon, the partner to Menua, who has a tragic story. This is a recurring theme. And I brought All Trade on board to Armor Digivolve it, and we agreed love would be an interesting armor to explore for Morphomon and Menua, specifically how love can turn cruel and twisted, similar to Sethmon's reference book stating its love became too powerful and turned to hatred. All of the terrible things Menua does in Last Evolution Kizuna are because of that love she had for Morphomon that was tragically taken from her. So Morphomon love Armor Digivolves to Lonomon, getting its name from Lonomia, which are a species of moth famed for their venomous caterpillar stage. I also liked how Lono kinda sounds like loner or lonely, which Menua herself would be after what happened to Morphomon, and indeed Lonomon would likely be a result of another of Menua's toxic love experiments. An Armor Digimon using Morphomon, Eosmon data, and a stolen Digi-Egg of Love to make the most toxic love moth you've ever seen. All Trade also tried to take inspiration from Morphomon evolutions we've created before, like Butterfly Dramon, and I think it's come together well. You can see the headpiece and wings evoke the Digi-Egg as seen in Halcymon, but the Morphomon body is reconfigured to something new but still familiar. Watch out for Lonomon's toxic dust that it spreads from its wings. For Digimon Adventure Tri, I kind of split up the thought process as to how these kids could have Armor Digivolution, and the three I'm going to focus on are Tapirmon, Bearmon, and Meikumon. We know Tapirmon and Bearmon belong to Maki and Daigo, the original Digidestined, whose Digimon became the Digimon Sovereign. I'm not going to do the other kids because technically we never saw them with rookie Digimon. We didn't really get a good idea into their personality or anything like that, so focusing on Daigo and Maki, on Bearmon and Tapirmon makes sense to me. We also know the Digimon Sovereign are intrinsically linked to the Armor Digi-Eggs in Digimon Adventure 02 and Adventure Canon, so perhaps in this AU, or just we didn't see it, during their time as children in the digital world, their Digimon could Armor Digivolve, or at least do something like a proto-Armor Digivolution. We'll begin with Tapirmon, whose partner Maki to me shares a lot of similarity with Ken, both having tragic partner situations, a traumatic childhood in the digital world, and a relation to the Dark Ocean. As such, I thought it made sense that her Tapirmon would use the Digi-Egg of Kindness to Armor Digivolve, becoming Ponymon, drawn by HLR. I did struggle whether to go with our refined ideas of kindness from our fixings video here, or to go with the existing theme. Cartoonish, kid gloves, cute with reds and pinks, and I think HLR compromised it in a beautiful way, creating something a little girl would dream up. And let's not forget, the bond to their partner and the child's hopes and dreams are hugely important to Digimon. Maki's Tapirmon transformed into a not-so-little pony for Maki to ride, pet, and take care of. A true envoy of kindness. But the rosebud theme of the Digi-Egg isn't lost here, as its horse armor is evocative of rose petals. I just think it makes so much sense for a young Maki and is something very different and very Digimon. A kind protector, Ponymon canters to wherever it is most needed. The heady aroma it emits calms and brings peace to any who inhale it, but it can kill with kindness where needed, with its hoof heart stamp. As for Daigo's Bearmon, well, again, I like the idea of him being an original Digidestined connected to Sovereigns and Armor Digi-Eggs. Daigo really, in my opinion, would be the Ty or Davis of his group of Digidestined, so it makes all the sense in the world he would be able to access Courage Armor Digivolution, and as such, his Bearmon Courage Armor Digivolves to Helarctomon, drawn by Soru. I chose the name Helarctomon coming from Helarctos, the genus name for the sun bear, and I mean, what is a Courage Crest Bearmon armor if not a sun bear after a fashion? And that connection between bears, the sun, and indeed the moon is present in the design here, with this kind of crescent on its head. The vibes here are very much Flame Dramon, but are also very reminiscent of a popular Bearmon / Grismon mega, Marsmon, which I love. Soru absolutely nailed the armor here. You can see see the Bearmon underneath, and I love how the Courage Armor manifests in such a familiar way while still having tons of unique touches. It's like the perfect third to stand alongside Flamedramon and Shadramon as peak examples of Courage Armor. A strong leader Digimon, Helarctomon has the strength of a bear and the courage of a dragon. Its signature move is the Ursa Rocket. So that brings us to our final Tri-Armor, of course, Meicoomon. The tragic Meicoomon clearly acts as a mirror to Gatomon, a champion level cat that becomes more humanoid, the two even merging together during Tri. So it was very tempting to give her the Darkness Digi-Egg like we did with Ukomon. However, I wanted Mei and Meicoomon to have some brief levity to match and be lent power from their friends Gatomon and Kari. So either in an AU or if Meicoomon gets to return one day, or just at some point before everything went so terribly wrong in Tri, Meicoomon would access the Digi-Egg of Light to become Akmon. Once again drawn by Rubix, Rubix was inspired by the Ak bars, a traditional Bolga symbol depicting what appears to be a winged snow leopard. This fantasy animal was chosen to help mirror the Sphinx and Egyptian basis of Nefertimon, Gatomon's light armor. I adore how this came out. As required, you can 100% see the Meicoomon underneath, but I'm also fond of how Rubix created this big floofy snow leopard that still retains the important elements of the Digi-Egg and Crest of Light. It's a holy snow leopard. Much like our Bearmon armor, it also creates a great trio alongside Pegasusmon and Nefertimon. I can just picture it being ridden by Mei as all the 02 kids return and use their vehicle-style armors with her. Damn, R.I.P. Akmon is a noble and ferocious defender of the light. Gliding freely, it's also a very proficient land runner. Emissaries of Evil, beware its Snow Light Claw. And finally is Digimon the movie / Hurricane Touchdown. Wait, Karn, didn't Terriermon Golden Armor Digivolve in that movie? Yes, but Willis has another partner. I've always been curious what would happen if Willis, our only kid not from the main cast to access Armor Digivolution in the anime media, got to use his Digi-Egg of Destiny on his other partner, a redeemed and reborn Lopmon. Inside media, Lopmon has Golden Armor Digivolve before, but it's always just to Golden Rapidmon, reusing the Armor Digivolution for Terriermon. Well, that's not good enough, damn it! We present Antilamon Armor, drawn by some guy 944. Yeah, I've just always wanted to see this. My logic was that if Terriermon became Golden Rapidmon, and we know Terriermon's conventional ultimate level, like in Tamers, is a non-Golden Rapidmon, that a Golden Antilamon should also exist. And that's exactly what this is. Clad in Golden Destiny armor with an Antilamon / Lopmon underbody, I think some guy 944 absolutely delivered. I love how he took Antilamon being able to turn its hands into axes, and Antilamon armor instead would have full-on gauntlets with axes on them, allowing it to attack with the axe but still use its fingers for dexterous or slashing capabilities, making it potentially stronger and more powerful than its non-armored version. A long-lost golden warrior, Antilamon armor is a shining example of the power of redemption. Its signature moves are the Golden Mantra, where its golden armor toughens and creates a barrier all around it, and Shining Blades, where it employs every spike and blade on its body for a devastating finish. And that is it! All of our new movie armor Digivolutions. Lofimon, Lonomon, Ponymon, Helarctomon, Akmon, and Antilamon armor. Please do go follow all the artists who did such wonderful work on this video. Alright, we've had some brand new armor Digivolutions for existing Digimon, but what about taking armor Digimon and digivolving them further? And our first armor Digimon that is going to digivolve further is Halsamon, who I recruited Capney for, and its ultimate level is Wajatmon. This references Wajat, or the Eye of Horus, as Halsamon, or Holsmon in Japan, comes from Horus, the Egyptian god. Wajatmon is like a fighter pilot with a radar scope helping it identify enemies across endless skies. It has found great joy and adoration from others, and in itself radiates love for protecting the skies. Capney took a really interesting direction with this, I think, keeping that semi-armored feel of Halsamon, but adding more fighter pilot / fighter jet vibes. I think it works very well, and does keep up some of that Horus Falcon imagery from the Egyptian side of things. Though I would argue that Halsamon is probably the least Egyptian feeling Digimon in 02, especially when we got Nefertimon. We'll get to that. Then Wajatmon will digivolve further to its mega level, Ramon, coming from Ra, a god higher up than Horus, but both based on birds and very similar looking deities. And I know Ramon kinda sounds like ramen, grow up! However, if you just can't get over Ramon being a name, I think Heliomon would also work, coming from Heliopolis, the city of the sun, a major city of ancient Egypt, as the cult of Nevis Bull, an embodiment of Ra, had it as its center. Heliomon is powered by an engine of pure burning love. While its appearance may be intimidating, it is gentle and caring to its chosen child and any who it considers allies. Then we move over to Shurimon, Digimon, who digivolves to its ultimate level, Roninmon. A Ronin is a drifter or wanderer, a type of samurai who had no lord or master, and in some cases had also severed all links with his family or clan. It is said that Roninmon digivolved further due to its severed connection with its chosen child, possibly due to the human and digital world becoming disconnected. Roninmon now travels the digital world, assisting the weak and fighting off bandits, thieves, and vagabonds. Its determination is pure and sincere, and it can deliver devastating slashes with its many leaf katana. I think Fuzzy really delivered on the promise of Shurimon here, upgrading it to more of a samurai. The plant helmet looks absolutely fantastic, and I still like that it keeps a shuriken on its belt, not forgetting its time as a ninja. Though with time, Roninmon could digivolve, eventually becoming Daimyomon, also drawn by Fuzzy Comics. After many years, the pain of Roninmon's heart was healed, perhaps reunited with its chosen child, or simply forging a clan of its own. Daimyomon became a powerful leader, matched only by how powerful of a warrior it is. As one who grew used to being alone, Daimyomon now holds its loved ones as more important than its own life, a pure kind of love. It will fight sincerely until the bitter end for those it holds dearest. With a barrage of weapons, though appearing steely, actually formed from incredibly layered digital plant life. Every element of Daimyomon comes from its own body, whether that be its wooden plant-like armor or its flowing grass hair. Fuzzy just absolutely delivered with this guy. It brings together everything we like about Shurimon in my opinion, adds the elements that came in from Roninmon, and even has some of those red bits which feel very Hawkmon. Especially looking at this headpiece here and the under armor, it still feels like a Hawkmon evolution. But what of Digmon? Well, Fuzzy Comics is still on board. Learning from its time as Digmon, Drillamon was born, from a Digmon that ran endless calculations on underground logistics. Now in a much more enhanced form, Drillamon helps forge new underground paths, railways, and more in the human and digital worlds. It's also excellent at battle and is something of a Professor Hulk of the digital world. Softly spoken but a tireless worker, said to always be inventing new practical ways to help others. I really like how much Fuzzy dug into the drills and excavation aesthetic of Digmon, giving it these bigger wings, and also to me very much evoking Atla Kabuterimon, which is very appropriate for the Knowledge Crest and Knowledge Digi-Egg. Still feels very Digmon to me though, which I like a lot. But Drillamon will eventually exceed even its own expectations, digivolving to Excavamon. Knowledge truly is power for this beast. The zenith of mechanical engineering, Excavamon is as smart as it is powerful. Every inch of it can continue its important excavation work, but also is tuned for battle. Its mere presence is enough to intimidate most Digimon to run away, but that terrifying exterior betrays a kind, patient, and reserved personality. When not working, it often lets child-level Digimon use it as a climbing frame, and takes great delight in burying its sharp edges in the dirt to keep the children safe while they play. I think Fuzzy had a really hard task here to make something befitting of Digmon and Excavamon as a mega, and delivered with aplomb. It reminds me very specifically of Tyrant Kabuterimon. It almost feels like it could be a fusion of Tyrant Kabuterimon and Hercules Kabuterimon. Again, very appropriate for the Crest of Knowledge. It's this big hulking beast, but I did want it to have a soft side, very much like both Izzy and, importantly, Cody, and it definitely feels like a Digmon mega. I love it. Now let's look to see. As Submarimon was burdened with a sincere need to be reliable, knowing it needed the ability to shepherd more than one chosen child through the deep oceans, it digivolved to Submersimon, a larger submersible vehicle adept at underwater combat, but also at taking a small group of chosen children and their partners across the seas at great speed. Submersimon was drawn by Dry, and feels very much in a similar wheelhouse to Belugamon, which we created for the Digimon Tamers DNA Digivolution video. I absolutely adore this. You can definitely see how it's a Digivolution of Submarimon. It also evokes other underwater Digimon. Obviously there's some Plesiomon in there, and while it is fully armored, those golden elements and the purples and whites still make it feel like it could come from Armadillomon. Great work, Dry. The seas of the digital and human world get treacherous, especially in frozen vistas, which is why Submersimon rose to the task to become this dutiful Digimon. Now a complete icebreaker ship of a Digimon, Icebreakermon is wizened and eager to be relied on, and is a titan of a vehicle Digimon, capable of carrying over 100 humans or Digimon and delivering devastating impacts on blockades, whether they be ice, mountains, or another Digimon. This is so fantastic to me. It really reminds me of things like Frozomon. The sort of mustache and ice make it look quite old, which very much works for me. Makes me think of Vikemon in particular up front, but still again a Submarimon evolution through and through. And it even has that Deep Savers logo, the dolphin on its back. attack. But what about the leader of the group, Davis? Yes, Flamedramon's burning courage has overflowed, creating Flaredramon, drawn by Weirdomon, now wielding a much more powerful claw, flaming wings, and a fiery blaster that can easily burn any opponent to a crisp. Flaredramon is afraid of nothing and takes to the skies to deliver a barrage of fire rockets. Weirdomon, I think, delivered once again a quintessential Digimon design in Flaredramon. The wings are a really nice touch, I think, something that the base Flamedramon definitely feels like it has been stepped up for with its ultimate level, and the mix of weaponry really fits. Plus, I like the little shoulder blades with the Greymon, or at least Greymon style, really ties back nicely to the Crest of Courage. But with its heat turned up to the maximum, Flaredramon digivolves to Magmadramon, also drawn by Weirdomon. This courageous knight overflows with fire of many kinds. Now carrying twin lances of flaming justice, Magmadramon is a contender for the 14th Royal Knight, a dragon of mythical standing, and a knight of duty and honor. Magmadramon disappears in the blink of an eye, reappearing in the stratosphere above its enemies, ready to deliver a Bahamut-esque fire satellite that rains down destructive fire upon them. Yeah, this is fantastic. I think it makes a ton of sense that Flamedramon's mega level would take some more humanoid cues from more Greymon. I know people aren't always fond of humanoid megas for dragon-like Digimon, but Flamedramon's already pretty humanoid anyway. Also definitely has some vibes of Shine Greymon with those wings, but I like that you can see again the Greymon shoulder pads. It just makes sense. It really feels like it could stand toe-to-toe with all these Greymon species, which is great as a Vmon Courage Armor Digivolution Mega. But what of Raidramon? Well, it would digivolve to Raimeidramon. Raime is the Japanese word for thunderclap, and Raidramon's loyalty becomes apparent as it becomes somewhere between a dragon mount and a faithful canine companion, evoking similar aesthetics to its crest forebearer Garuramon. Raimeidramon is a friend to the bitter end, striking from the darkness at any who would seek to hurt its companions. Fuzzy absolutely delivered with this one. I love how it kind of compromises the more dragon half of Raidramon with its Garuramon inspiration. It feels like a really great mix of dragon and wolf. Still totally a mount that Davis could use, which works great, but also just tuned up to 11. A little bit of wings going on, which is great. I could definitely see it soaring through the skies alongside like Nefertimon and Pegasusmon, for example. It feels like a tuned up vehicle. It actually kind of has some Miraidon and Koraidon vibes, which I'm very much into. But with its friendship turned up to maximum, Raimeidramon becomes Rakuraidramon. Rakurai is the Japanese word for thunderbolt, and this Digimon is now clearly a relative of Azulongmon. Rakuraidramon is surrounded by the taiko drums of the god Raijin, which it uses to beat out insanely loud thunderclaps that destroy the ears of its enemies, before swooping down and surging through them with the power of 1,000 thunderbolts. Incredibly loyal and endlessly reliable, Rakuraidramon is a companion you can always rely on and never want to let down. Yeah, Fuzzy nailed this one. Total inspiration from the Garuramon and Crest of Friendship, but also folding in new elements from Raijin and cementing a little bit that connection between the Crest of Friendship and Azulongmon. So another thunder or electric dragon in that pantheon tying into Azulongmon and the Digiega Friendship felt real good to me. Plus taiko drums, who doesn't love those? Then that brings us to the last two Digimon that Armor Digivolved in 02, beginning with Pegasusmon. And I thought it was important to lean into Pegasusmon's nature as Pegasus, the Greek steed and also the constellation, which led Dry to digivolve him to Capricornmon. Capricornmon expands on the steed nature of Pegasusmon, now with wheels and an aquatic tail, functioning as an all-terrain chariot of the gods, specifically Aegeomon, who it is a lifelong companion with. Dry wanted to do a unifying Digivolution for all the Hope armors while still keeping a zodiac or constellation theme, Capricorn being a mythical sea goat from Greek mythology and also the name of a constellation, and that tied to Aegeomon, well, we'll explain that in just a minute, because Capricornmon, full of hope for the future, digivolves to its mega, Belleromon. This is a thunderbolt carrier of the Digimon god, Jupitermon of the Olympos 12, and its personal chariot, though it is not just a vehicle. Belleromon is more than capable of fighting by itself and can even use Jupitermon's hammers in battle. It is named after Bellerophon, Pegasus's original rider in Greek mythology. Yeah, Dry knocked this one out of the park. And that finally brings us to Gatomon, or Nefertimon to be specific, who Dry digivolved to Sphinxmon. Sphinxmon is a puppet prophet Digimon, similar to Chohakaimon, who was originally an angel species that was banished from heaven. It now roams the digital world, defeating evil with its Khopesh swords. It is uncertain if this path will lead to darkness in Ancient Sphinxmon or back to the light. So Dry wanted to try and include every light armor evolution into the ultimate, Sphinxmon, but he also decided to be a little bit cheeky and go with a Sphinx cat as the base. Since Nefertimon and Ancient Sphinxmon are already full-on Sphinxes, it might get a little bit repetitive. I do like that he moved a little bit away from the steed vibe. I don't think Kari necessarily needs it, and there's plenty of other vehicles in our armor lineup now. And this does feel definitely like it could be an evolution of Gatomon. It has some Sylphimon things going on, a little bit of Bastemon going on maybe, and even some Anjuwamon if you kind of squint. Great work from Dry. But if it fully commits to the light and does not get tempted by the darkness, I also really like the idea that it could become Ancient Sphinxmon potentially, because Ancient Sphinxmon is the ancient warrior of darkness. Koichi represented the spirit of darkness, and his brother Koji represented light. So I like that kind of Frontier 02 connection there. Anyway, fully committed to the path of light, Sphinxmon would digivolve to Hathormon. Hathormon is the embodiment of light in the metaphorical sense, crest and digimental, a beacon of guidance even in the darkest days, and is said to have created many rulers of life and death that reside in the digital world. Hathor again is a goddess from Egyptian mythology and is associated with a lot of rituals from motherhood to the afterlife, and is also sometimes described as the mistress of the stars, which is a great fit for a light Digivolution tied into Egypt. Again, a lot of really cool stuff going on here. I like the cosmic elements Dry included and the big light ball on the head. Feels like it could again be a Digivolution of Bastemon, which works nicely, one of the picks I liked in the first video, but also very true to Gatomon, I think. A great Nefertimon evolution, and feels like it could be some kind of melding of the ideals of Ophanimon and Magnadramon, but in a much more Egyptian outlook. Really think Dry absolutely delivered here. I love it. It feels very unique to anything else in the Gatomon family. And that is it. All of our further Armor Digivolutions of Armor Digimon we saw in Digimon Adventure 02. Buchimon was not included here, and neither were the non-02 armors, which Buchimon technically is one of. However, if you really like this concept, I think we might explore it more in future. What would the other Armor Digimon look like if they digivolve further, the non-02 Armor Digivolutions? Anyway, let me know your favorites in the comments down below. Please be respectful. Don't be a dick. The artists are putting a lot of work here. Huge shout out to my sovereigns, It's Elementaries, EDK14, and Jamon, all of the members you can see on screen right now for supporting this channel with their hard-earned money. They're the absolute goats. I really appreciate you so goddamn much. Yeah, I'm about to travel home from MCM London Comic Con when this goes out, so if I saw you there, hope it went well. But otherwise, I will see you next time when we go digital. Bye-bye. It's recent territory. Now it's time for us to Dark Digivolve Armor Digimon. Another video that I was really proud of. Didn't do quite as well as maybe I would have hoped. One of the standouts from the most recent Spooktober for me was this video, so I hope you enjoy. Alright, and we begin with Flamedramon. And like I said, I wanted to do something that evoked Skull Greymon, a true meltdown, if you will, for Flamedramon. Dark Digivolving with the incorrect kind of courage from Davis, and that's where Weirdomon stepped in to create Molten Dramon. A much more dinosaurish looking Flamedramon evolution in my opinion, but I love the chains that it is coated in. You can still tell this is 100% an evolution of Flamedramon with that headpiece resembling the Digi-Egg, but I'm not as concerned with Dark Digivolution that they keep the armor traits all the way through. While it is nice, I think I'm more concerned with the themes and the corruption of those original themes, and Flamedramon has 100% been corrupted here. With this smoggy fire erupting from its back, I think Weirdomon absolutely delivered. Molten Dramon has a burning magma core. The bravery and courage of Flamedramon has been twisted to an unrecognizable darkness fueled by the darkness in its tamer's heart. Now Molten Dramon is a feral beast that attacks indiscriminately, charging up for a breath weapon that annihilates all around it, known as the Toxic Magma Ray. Moving over to Raydramon, I really do like the idea of Skull Greymon still, and I think it's interesting to explore Skull Greymon in something that uses the Digi-Egg and crest of friendship. And so when friendship turns sour, when allies become enemies, Raydramon Dark Digivolves to Hellhoundramon, once again drawn by Weirdomon. And yeah, look at this beast, very recognizably Raydramon, but also you can see how this is inspired by Skull Greymon, and indeed my perennial favorite Dark Digivolution for Garuramon, Skull Balukimon too. This honestly would be a great pre-evolution to the Azulongmon ruin mode that we created earlier this month. Not intentional by any means, but I mean that's a really cool evolution branch. Maybe even throw in something like a Cyclomon, or indeed, yeah, just regular Raydramon as the pre-evolution. Hellhoundramon is, as its name implies, a hellhound, created when its lack of friendship withered away its body. It has not one single friend friend in the world, and as such has turned to malice. It is a predatory Digimon, often seen skulking around barren wastelands of the digital world. Any attempt to befriend it is instantly rebuked. This Digimon not only has lost friendship, but no longer craves it. Its only goal is to be alone, and as such, it will destroy you with its terror thunder. Digmon, how do we corrupt an earth mole bug? Well, that is where Soru steps in, dark digivolving Digmon to Exhaustmon, of course getting its name from exhaust, car exhaust, the things that are flooding chemicals up into the atmosphere. Still heavily inspired by Digmon, Soru was also inspired by things like Dark Volumon, the dark pre-evolution of Ballistamon from Digimon Cross Wars, and the slightly more dark-leaning Kawagamon species. If Digmon, the knowledge armor, is based on things like Kabuterimon and Tentomon, it would make sense that its dark Digivolution would lean into kind of the evil side of the Kabuterimon family, the Kawagamon family, Gran Kawagamon, Grandis. Indeed, even things like Metal Life Kawagamon, which has a default evolution, the kind of normal evolution for Metal Life Kawagamon being Tyrant Kabuterimon, which is the dark Kabuterimon Evo. I love what Soru's done here. You can tell how it's inspired and originates from Digmon, but really does switch things up. There's still a little bit of that Digi-Egg of knowledge with the yellows and the purples underneath, but completely clad in this dark armor, and I love the wings. Exhaustmon is a sentry, often seen working alongside Digimon like Skull and Dark Nightmon. With no guilt, it harvests the ores and resources of the digital world for itself and its compatriots, with no desire to replenish or recuperate that which it has harvested. It is a guzzler, taking everything it possibly can and leaving nothing in its wake. Beware its doomsday drill. And Soru also took the Submarimon evolution, and I think that aquatic vehicle-based Digimon always lend themselves really nicely to Dark Digivolution. Once again, we're paying homage to the Skull Greymon aspect of Dark Digivolution by having Submarimon Dark Digivolve to Valenciamon. We already use a lot of names for Dark Digivolutions like Abyssmon and things like that, so I thought it'd be fun to name Valenciamon after a famous ghost ship, and yes, I did consider the Flying Dutch Mon, but the SS Valencia is another famous ghost ship, and I think Valenciamon is just the kind of name that Digimon Creative would use. I love how you can see the Skull Greymon influence here in this much more beefy, dark Submarimon design. There's still a little bit of the Armadillomon undercarriage, and this is still definitely a vehicle, just a more evil one, a ghost ship. Another detail that Soru included, which I think is lovely as an homage to another very famous Dark Digivolution, Megidramon, is that Valenciamon also has the digital hazard on it. Just a fantastic upgrade on Submarimon. I love the way the bone stuff factors into the hatch and into the nose spear. Great work from Soru, one of my favorites from him this year. Valenciamon trawls the lowest depths of the net's ocean, spearing any other aquatic Digimon that it would find and devouring them. It grows in size steadily over its entire lifespan as it absorbs the energy of other Digimon it mercilessly murders. But it's not just Digimon it sets its sights on. If it were to find any human, especially a human that it was once partnered with, it would decimate them in an instance with its harpoon Harbinger. Halcyon is tricky. There's a lot of evil existing bird-like Digimon, but I really like the direction that some guy 944 went with it when he created Anzumon. We've also used a lot of mythological evil birds over the course of the custom art for this channel, but I chose Anzu as the name, origin, or etymology of this Digimon, which according to Listverse, I know, a great sounding source, but trust me, they did their work. Anzu is an ancient Sumerian bird with the body of an eagle and the head of a lion. It was so massive that the only tree big enough to hold its nest was the tree that straddled the 7 heads of the river of the sun god Utu. Anzu's flight would kick up enormous sand and dust storms. His scream would make the whole world shake, and even the gods viewed him as a nearly invincible threat. So yeah, I think that's a good etymology for this Digimon. And I think you can also see how this is inspired by existing dark bird Digimon. Whether it be something like a Velgamon or a Dijangmon, Anzumon really fits in their roster. And because of that Halcyon underbody, also of course being bipedal and a little bit more humanoid looking, evokes Garudamon, which is perfect because Garudamon is Biomon's ultimate, and that is where the Crest of Love gets its power from. Anzumon resides in the deserts and plains of the digital world, creating sandstorms to obscure its location. However, if it is discovered, it will let out a scream of torment to ward off any who would attack it. Some guy 944 also jumped on for Shurimon, and given that Shurimon is inspired by traditional Japanese elements, a Dark Digivolution to Some Guy 944 made sense to lean into that as well as the plant life focus, creating a parasitic mushroom Digimon in Jiangshimon. Jiangshimon gets its name from the Jiangshi, the Chinese vampire, as you can see from the little paper on its head. But of course, the concept of the Jiangshi kind of perpetuates throughout East Asia in different ways, so it doesn't have to be inherently Chinese. It's more of an East Asian focus, similar to Shurimon and its traditional Japanese focus. And it's still very much a ninja with all those kunai, but like I said, kind of the Last of Us is going on here as the mushroom has overtaken. The plants and vines wrapping around its neck. It's a fully possessed, parasitic Digimon. Little design notes I also love are that the tattered scarf at the front ends in a shape that resembles a skull, and I do love all these seals covering this mushroom vampire. It's a very fitting Shurimon evolution. A cunning tactician, Jiangshimon nestles itself at the center of forest areas of the digital world, allowing its spores to infect the wildlife and Digimon of those areas. In doing so, it can puppet rookie-level plant-life Digimon to do its bidding. It's often said you will never see a Jiangshimon before you see an army of Mushmon coming to destroy you. This is known as the Mind Flayer. Pegasusmon, I handed over to HLR Art. And HLR said he wanted to do something a little bit more inspired by the traditional things of Digimon, which is why Pegasusmon dark digivolves to Tikbalamon, named after the Tikbalang, a Philippine werehorse, which fits with the fact that this Digimon is very much inspired by the 90s style of Weregarurumon, another pant-wearing Digimon that HLR just wanted to homage. As we are doing this dark digivolution based on adventure, it's nice admittedly not to call back to a dark digivolution that Gabumon had in that season because it didn't have one, but to the slightly more out there evolution Weregarurumon. HLR was also inspired by things like Mortal Kombat, again because of that 90s Western aesthetic, with elements like Baraka's bone sword being referenced in the design. And yeah, I think this is so fun. It still evokes things like Devimon with the mark on its jeans, and Devimon being the kind of dark counterpart to Angemon, but going with a werehorse is absolutely inspired and very, very Digimon. Tikbalamon is a fallen Pegasus. Wandering as a nomad around the digital world, it solely seeks retribution for the life of light it has lost. Furious that it lost out on all its potential and now is a vessel for darkness. Lashing out with its bone sword and its toxic claws. Its signature move is the Bone Impaler. And HLR also took on Nefertimon. And I personally was not sure where I wanted to go with Nefertimon as a dark digivolution. Do we go more into the Egyptian focus? But then we have things like Bastemon and Anubismon already. But I actually really like the direction HLR took it. Thinking about Chimeramon being one of the not necessarily dark digivolutions, but kind of like evil creations of the adventure canon, and how interesting it would be if, much like Angemon, Chimeramon had a woman counterpart, and so Nefertimon dark digivolves to Chimerawomon. And I adore this idea. This is so much fun. Nefertimon dark digivolving, taking in a bunch of data from other Digimon to become this chimeric evil beast is fantastic, and a Digimon I never would have thought we'd needed, but yeah, it's so cool. We should have more Womon variants of other Digimon. Why not a Chimerawomon? The data of the Digimon she has are Arukenimon horns, Birdramon wings, a Dark Knightmon helmet, a little reference to Digimon Adventure 2020, Akilamon feathers, Lady Devimon, Lilithmon, and Lilymon arms, a Lilithmon wing, and Magnadramon legs, all Digimon, feminine Digimon, apart from of course Dark Knightmon, connected tangentially to Gatomon. Birdramon being of course Sora, who she was in a party with, Akilamon and Gatomon being the Digivolving to Sylphimon, Lady Devimon of course a rival of Angelwomon, Lilithmon being the potential evolution of Lady Devimon, Lilymon again being Mimi's partner, the other woman that Kari was in a party with in Adventure, and Magnadramon being potentially Gatomon's mega. Chimerawomon is a cunning and cruel mistress. Her days of light are far behind her as she has assimilated all the data of other Digimon she once held dear to create a form born of pure darkness. A Digimon that was never supposed to exist. She will lure you in and spit you out destroyed. A true terror of the digital world, feared in every corner. Beware of her paradox eyes. So sadly I'm not going to do Magnamon and Rapidmon. We did consider it, but it ultimately came down to a budget, but also because Magnamon and Rapidmon are already equivalent to Mega level. I think what I'd like to do eventually is a video dark digivolving all Golden Armor Digimon and make that its own video, but I wanted this specifically to be about the champion equivalent power level Digimon, so I didn't do them. To make up for that though, while we're not doing any of the non-02 armors, I do think Buchimon is kind of overlooked a lot, both in my videos and by Bandai. I don't love Buchimon as a Digimon, but when All Trade came to me and begged to do Buchimon that originally wasn't in this video, I agreed because why not? And I promised I'd give you something back, Buchimon lovers, so here we are. And yeah, Buchimon dark digivolves to a Bandolmon. And yeah, it's a abandoned Buchimon, no longer feeling kindness. Its tamer has a abandoned it. There is no kindness in its heart. It is filled with a disgusting, sinewy mess. It's an abandoned doll. Its signature move, honestly, is just staring at its opponent, causing fear to come into their heart because something feels wrong here. The attack is known as the dangerous doll eye. Wait, looking at a Bandolmon, what is that inside? Oh my god! Yes, this is the true form of a Bandolmon. The true Dark Digivolution of Buchimon Epomismon. It disguises itself as a Buchimon-like form to lure in prey. The closer they come, the more clearly wrong this helpful, kind creature is. And once they're close enough to realize their mistake, they're stricken down with the countless blades Epomismon can generate from its body. Its namesake is the Epomis beetle, due to its larva luring in frogs by acting small, weak, and helpless before revealing their mandibles. All Trade was inspired by Parasite the Maxim all the way, a fleshy nightmare creature that can morph their body into near anything they like, disguising themselves as other people, but unable to emulate or even grasp things like kindness. This is a true body horror Digimon and I adore it. All Trade really pitched this one from start to finish, the Abandolmon concept, and then the surprise of Epomismon. It works so well, so incredibly disgusting and creepy, a perfect Dark Digivolution. And that is it. All of our Dark Digivolutions of the Armor Digimon from Digimon Adventure 02, all disgustingly and appropriately creepy for the Halloween vibe. And the final video from the last America arc is this. Finding out what it would look like if the champions from Digimon Adventure 02 Armor Digivolve, so not Vmon to Flamedramon, but X-Vmon with the Digi-Egg of Courage to something else. Take it away, Karn. And in today's video, yes, we're going to be Armor Digivolving the champions from 02, X-Vmon, Ankylomon, Akilamon, and Angemon. We're not going to be doing Stingmon just because we've never actually seen Buchimon in Digimon Adventure 02. However, for you Buchimon fans, I've got something coming up for you in October. So what are we looking for here? Well, of course, we still want to preserve the Digi-Egg elements. If you look at Digimon Adventure 02, Armadillomon uses the Digi-Egg of Knowledge, and you can see that knowledge encasing his body, but you can also see how the rookie is underneath, especially in Digimon like Flamedramon and Raydramon. It's very clear the elongated Vmon body is under that Armor Digi-Egg. But now, of course, we're seeing the body of the champions and folding in those elements to our new Armor Digimon forms that only the champions have. For example, we might see wings in an X-Vmon armor, more dinosaur elements for an Ankylomon armor, and so on. And I know someone's gonna say, actually, Gatomon's already a champion. Yes, of course, I know that. However, if you watched Digimon Adventure 02, you'd already know she lost her tail ring, and as such was practically depowered to the power level of a rookie. So while yes, we have seen one champion Armor Digivolve in 02 already, we didn't see the rest of them, so stop nitpicking. The 30mon is basically on the same power level as all the other armors in the show that Digivolve from rookies anyway, so we can kind of treat Gatomon as the rookie for her season anyway. Also, yes, Digimon like X-Vmon have become Flamedramon and so on in video games, but we're talking about unique custom art forms for all of them. And with all that preamble done, let's begin with X-Vmon, who with the Digi-Egg of Courage, Armor Digivolves to War Flamedramon. War Flamedramon, that's the etymology, does what it says in the tin. Of course, a reference to War Greymon, but really focusing in on the war elements. I did also consider calling this like Flame Nightmon, but I didn't want to confuse the hope elements of Nightmon with the flame elements of the Digi-Egg of Courage, so instead we have War Flamedramon. And if you think War Flamedramon is too complicated of a name, may I remind you that we just got Heavy Metal Dramon this year, which has 2 more syllables and is official as hell. And because it shares that war prefix with War Greymon, while I'm not going to really be trying to fit these into evolution lines because they are Armor Digimon, they exist kind of outside of the level paradigm, this could definitely be a War Greymon prevo. Some details I adore from Weirdamon here are of course the wings of X-Vmon, that what would have been red armor with Flamedramon still having red elements, so it can still be from the Digi-Egg, but blackened during the Digivolution process. The way I see this is that the red armor of the Digi-Egg would flow over it like magma and then harden, but that fire is still bursting forth from its blade, its shield, its tail, even its feet and its shoulders, which it shares in common with other non-02 Armor Digivolutions like Lynxmon that have this more fiery aura all over the body. I think this is such a great Armor Digivolution to X-Vmon and still feels like Flamedramon. A close cousin to Flamedramon, this previously thought impossible Armor Digivolution for X-Vmon springs forth into battle. Wielding the Soul Shield and the Bravery Blade, War Flamedramon is a high-level, passionate tactician that can also explode into a burning rage at any time. And War Flamedramon's signature move is the Clashing Rocket. Moving over to the Digi-Egg of Friendship for X-Vmon, making something that feels like a bigger version of Raydramon while also still incorporating the elements of like thunder, electricity, feeling more quadrupedal as the Digi-Egg of Friendship is one of the Digi-Eggs that results in a more rideable form, but also doing something unique with it. Seemed like a struggle, but I think Weirdomon really delivered with Brontomon. Getting its name, of course, from the Brontosaur, but Bronto also means thunder. Weirdomon took inspiration from more old school media presentations of the Brontosaurus, like Land Before Time, etc., because Digimon tends to base a lot of stuff on media and pop culture, and less so strictly accurate paleontology and science. But while this is Brontomon for that double meaning, it definitely looks more like an Amargasaurus, which Weirdomon wanted me to clarify because we don't want to upset you again, Dino fans. My interpretation here is that the wings of XVmon have folded around its body, but also protruded outwards with the Digi-Egg's power to become all these spikes and spines along the back. It still would be technically rideable by Davis. I feel like the electric lightning current would not directly harm Davis. And I like how this does feel like a stage up from Raidramon, and indeed an Armor Digivolution for XVmon. In Japan, Kyoryu was kind of the term used for dragons and dinosaurs. So with XVmon being much more draconic, I think it makes a ton of sense that its Friendship Armor Digivolution would be something more either draconic or dinosaur-like. And this also kind of legitimizes a bit of an oddball Friendship Armor Digivolution in Stegomon. Now Stegomon has a much more Digi-Egg reminiscent cousin. Brontomon is infinitely faster than its bulky form would let you believe. A great carrier Digimon, but also one capable of running at max speeds across the digital world. Beware of Brontomon's Raiji roar. Alright, now it's time for Ankylomon. Obviously a dinosaur instead of the regular animal that Armadillomon is, and I think that gave us a lot of opportunity to do something different with its Armor Digivolutions. Looking at the Digi-Egg of Knowledge, obviously it has like an earth and excavation theme in Digimon Adventure 02, but it is still tying into insects and the themes of Tentomon and its evolution line, and so we wanted to somehow combine the dinosaur and the insect themes. And that's what led Weirdomon to creating Demolymon. Obviously, first of all, it gets its name from demolish because it has so many more spikes and drills. It's basically able to completely flatten a tower, make new housing or whatever would need to be done, and also, of course, it would be a good combatant. It's like a one-man wrecking crew. But as well as demolish, Demolymon's name, or Demolymon you could say, would also come from the roly-poly, or the pillbug, woodlouse, and it's even known as the carpenter, a cute little insect that rolls up into a ball similar to an armadillo, which is a great connect back and a good way to incorporate the insect side of the Digi-Egg of Knowledge with Digmon's construction and digging theme. I love that this actually is more of a quadruped, unlike the bipedal-ish Digmon, but that makes it so much more effective, and its inspiration being the roly-poly, and of course being an Armor Digivolution specifically for Ankylomon, which is again another quadruped, just works so great in my opinion. The little insect mouth, but also kind of looking like it could be a dust mask for construction. The drills on its shoulders as well as its claws, meaning it'll be able to burrow its way into basically anywhere, and that big wrecking crew tail is just fantastic. Demolymon is often seen on construction sites with Digimon like Junkmon, and indeed Digmon, working all day and night tirelessly to renovate and reconstruct areas of the digital world. Demolymon also does not like to be disturbed when it is sleeping, and if it is awoken by anyone, especially an antagonistic Digimon, it will not hold back with its roly-poly domination. And what of Armadillomon's other Armor Digi-Egg, the Digi-Egg of Reliability? Well, again, keeping the dinosaur theme and folding in the elements of aquatic and oceanic vibes of the Crest of Reliability, as well as the vehicle theme of Submarimon and some other reliability Armor Digimon, led Weirdomon to creating Mosamon. Very straightforward name here, it's based on the Mosasaur and other ancient aquatic creatures like the Deinosuchus, but still preserves a vehicle theme. It has this big anchor on its tail as well as these blades on its fins, which yes, would be good for combat, but also for slicing through oceans and indeed ice. And you can see up front here that the metallic front of its head also is reminiscent of a ship, and indeed this part here would be where the Digidestined, in this instance I guess Cody, would sit. It's dinosaur-like, getting elements from Ankylomon. It still preserves the Digi-Egg of Reliability and still has the crest on these little shooters here on the side. What a brilliant job Weirdomon did here, I love this. Mosamon is the vehicle Digimon, slicing fast through the oceans and ice of the digital world. It takes great pleasure in racing other aquatic Digimon, but is said to be a little bit of a sore loser. Its signature move is the Twin Vulcan Blaster. Okay, Ankylomon. Ankylomon proved a little bit more difficult, because really it's just a bigger bird. While it does have these horns, perhaps inspired by other mythology, the traits we're going to look at are basically just to fold in, I think, deliberately more bird elements. While Halcymon, the Love Armor, is very bird-like, Shurimon loses a lot of bird elements. But beginning with that Digi-Egg of Love, I liked Weirdomon's idea to take Halcymon and go one step further with it, with Ankylomon's Love Armor. And that, I think, is why the appropriate name for this Digimon would be Jet Halcyon. Much like how we have Jet Mervamon, Jet Sylphimon, and indeed Shoutmon plus Jet Sparrow, Jet Halcyon feels very appropriate. The Digi-Egg now encompassing the much bigger body of Aquilamon in much more steely armor. You can still see Aquilamon under there, however, and of course it has wings to help it glide and go in the direction it wants to go, but also it has these jet propulsors, letting it fly much faster than any other Digimon and indeed Halcyon itself. It doesn't have much of an Egyptian theming, but that's because neither does Halcyon really when you look at it, outside of the obvious reference to Horus. Jet Halcyon is one of the fastest flyers in the digital world, a guardian of love who seeks only to put more love into the world and defend love from those that would cause hatred. It can often be heard screeching as it sears towards you if you are looking to cause pain and misery to those that only want to love. And it will pick those who oppose it up with its talons and drop them at supersonic speeds with its love bomber attack. And as I touched on, Shurimon did not have a bunch of bird elements, so when we have Aquilamon use the Digi-Egg of Sincerity, we wanted to preserve that ninja or traditional Japanese aesthetic, but make it much more bird-like when the champion Armor Digivolves, and that gave birth to Kujakumon. Kujaku is the Japanese name for a peacock. I chose that specifically because of course Shurimon gets its name from the shuriken, another Japanese word, but also because, yeah, we already have an Armor Digimon called Peacockmon. This would make Kujakumon stand out and be a little bit different, while still preserving that technical Japanese naming convention that Shurimon has, and indeed that does extend to some other Sincerity Armor Digivolutions like Kabukimon. I am so impressed with how Weirdomon's done this. I like that you can still see the Aquilamon horns up here. There's some Aquilamon body there, then like taken over a little bit more with the Armor Digi-Egg, the leaves have kind of become one with the feet, and of course this big selling feature is all these shurikens acting as the peacock feathers. Absolutely insane, and I like the fact that this wing is turned up in such a way that you can see that it has more blades ready to throw. So cool. Kujakumon is a stealthy ninja, but also politically wise. It does more with its words in the digital world's hierarchy than it tends to do with its physical attributes. So make no mistake, Kujakumon can absolutely throw itself into a battle. Whether from the shadows or in the midst of war, Kujakumon will take its foes down with its 1000-point shuriken. And what of Angemon? Well, Angemon is a very big departure from its pre-evolution in comparison to XVmon, Aquilamon, and Ankylamon, going from this little guinea pig fella to a big angel. So Weirdomon and I wanted to respect that more humanoid element and combine it with the Greek myth side of Pegasusmon, which is when it became very obvious that Angemon should hope Armor Digivolve to Chironmon, getting its name from Chiron, still of Greek mythology, just like the Pegasus, a centaur that was a great healer, astrologer, and respected oracle. Chiron was said to be the first among centaurs and highly revered as a teacher and tutor, meaning that yes, he's a very high-ranking centaur, much like Angemon's evolutions become high-ranking angels, and it's literally from Greek mythology just like Pegasus. I think this is perfect. And while there is no Chiron constellation like there are Pegasus and indeed Sagittarius constellations, there is a Centaurus constellation, which actually is supposed to be, according to Michigan State University, the wise and benevolent centaur Chiron, while Sagittarius is a more aggressive and warlike archer centaur, which would explain why Sagittariusmon would be this more fiery archer centaur, whereas our Chironmon, our Angemon Hope Armor Digivolution, would be more serene and wise, like his angelic nature would dictate. Chironmon is one of the kindest Digimon in the digital world. Serene and angelic, but also a benevolent leader. In a battle situation, Chironmon will refuse to lose even one comrade, and achieves its goals for peace in the digital world with its Centaurus Canter. Alright, so you're watching the video, you're thinking, still got a little bit of time left, and Karn touched on Gatomon in the beginning.
Phrasing.
Well, Weirdomon and I decided to do just something a little bit fun. This video is all about champions, but of course Gatomon was a champion that Armor Digivolved, so we thought, what if Salamon did Armor Digivolve, addressing a balance that many people have wanted for years. But then, how would that work exactly? If Gatomon's Armor Digivolution Nefertimon is a similar size and scale to Pegasusmon, which is Patamon, a rookie's Armor Digivolution, would that mean that Salamon, being so much smaller and weaker, would produce like a more diminutive Armor Digivolution? And we decided, yes. And so Salamon, with the Digi-Egg of Light, would Armor Digivolve to Jackalmon. I'm sorry, but Armor Digivolutions being little guys is so cute to me. This is still folding in the elements of the Digi-Egg of Light. It's got these angelic wings, elements of the Digi-Egg on its paws, and of course, instead of having the Nefertiti style mask, the Sphinx style mask, it instead has a little jackal mask, which I think is super cute. I can just imagine this little guy still being like a little bit bigger, like on par with a rookie size or slightly below a champion, just hanging out with all the other champion Armor Digivolutions, or indeed the rookie Armor Digivolutions, whatever makes sense, I think this just would have been so cute to see a more dog-like, jackal-like Armor Digivolution, when of course Gatomon and Nefertimon lean much more cat-like. Jackalmon is a Digimon that helps shepherd others to the afterlife, a being of pure light. Associated with Nefertimon and Anubismon, Jackalmon is the good side of death. It is known to have a calming presence on all who would come near it, Digimon and human alike, allowing them to make peace with all that disturbs them. Though when pressed, it can use its heavenly rays as an offensive move called the Light of the Nile. And that is it, our Armor Digivolutions for champions and one rookie from Digimon Adventure 02. Warflamedramon, Brontomon, Demolymon, Mosamon, Jethalsamon, Kajakumon, Chironmon, and Jackalmon. Let me know your favorites in the comments down below. These have all come out absolutely wonderful. I think Weirdomon did a fantastic job here. Make sure you go follow Weirdomon over on Twitter or wherever else artists are these days. And that is it, the last compilation of this year, all being well. But I wanted to just revisit some of these custom art videos that I really loved and maybe you guys would want to see in a less interrupted format. Thank you once again to all the artists. All their links are in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Really excited for the next video we've got in January, and then February, March onwards is going to be all entirely new videos. Hopefully you appreciate that I had these little connective tissue elements. Thank you to my patrons, including my sovereigns, ZDK14 and Ranma Greyfire, as well as everyone else who supports me over on patreon.com/Karn EX, and my channel members here on YouTube. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. I'll see you next time when we go digital. Bye bye.